From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. A pleasant evening. I'm Dilanjali Ananda.
A very good evening indeed. I'm Charita Minapurarachi, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news.
The nation bids farewell to late Minister Armagan Thondaman. The Batticlaw Sion church bomber is revealed to have visited the church premises on several previous occasions. Agro-scientists say the locusts found in Mavatagama are not the locusts being identified in foreign countries these days. The court wants permission for the suspect in connection with the Ratmalana shooting incident to be detained for questioning. Curfew imposed in many states of the US.
The nation bid farewell to the late leader of Salon Workers Congress, former Minister Arumugam Thondaman, today. The late minister enters the chronicles of history as a leader who acted to uplift the living standards of the estate community whilst rejecting racism. The final rites took place with state patronage at the Hatton Norwood grounds this evening. The remains, which were brought to the Congress Industrial Institute at Kotagala yesterday, lay there until 1 p.m. today, at which only authorized persons were permitted to pay their last respects, adhering to health guidelines. Late Minister Thondaman, who first entered Parliament in 1994 from the Nuwara Eliya district, has represented his electorate in Parliament continuously for 26 years, at which many ministries that enable service towards the estate sector population were under him. The late Thondaman, who is a father of 3, was 55 at the time of demise, whilst his 56th birth anniversary fell on last Friday. The cortege left for the Hatton Norwood grounds at 1 p.m. today. As the public were unable to pay their last respects due to curfew being enforced, they were seen present on either sides of the road to honor their leader. The funeral was attended by the Mahasangha, clergy representing the other faiths, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and ministers, political leaders and a limited number of attendees. The condolence message by President was read out by Central Provincial Governor Attorney at Law Lalit U. Gamage.
President of Sri Lanka, condolence message. I was deeply shocked and saddened to learn about the untimely demise of Arumugam Thondaman, leader of Salon Workers Congress and the Minister of Community Empowerment and State Infrastructure Development, who served the best interest of the downtrodden plantation workers belong to all the communities. He carried forward the mission pioneered by his illustrious grandfather Saumyamurthy Thondaman and worked relentlessly to remove the grievances of the upcountry Tamil community. While Mr. Thondaman recognized the imperative need to solve the problems faced by the Tamil community, he steadfastly refused to subscribe to the notion of the separate state for Tamils in this country, despite the heavy pressures exerted by the powerful terrorist organization existed at that time. Minister Thondaman continued his grandfather's endeavor to uplift living standards of the plantation community, which was then considered as stereotype emancipated laborers. Today, the community produces professionals in every field thanks to the struggle commenced by Saumyamurthy and carried forward by Arumugam. He was a keen watcher and a student of interplay between political parties and strategies, and his immediate concern was the rights of the people he represented as their undisputed leader. His inspirational presence and political sagacity will be deeply missed by his people. I convey my deep condolences on the demise of this true son of Sri Lanka. May God give peace to his soul. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, 31st May 2020, Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka.
Expressing his condolences, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa reminisced that just a few hours before his demise, late Minister Thondaman visited him and discussed the issues faced by the estate community, which included the negotiations to determine the estate workers' daily wage as 1,000 rupees. The Premier stated that this was the late Minister's last request, as well as also developing housing facilities and schooling in the estate sector. The Premier further stated that as the late Minister has vested the implementation of his last wish with the government on the very next day after the late Minister's demise, this last request was presented before the Cabinet of Ministers and it was discussed on how the raised issues are to be resolved. The Premier pointed out the development activities carried out by the late Minister in the estate sector with state sponsorship, which includes the laying of concrete on estate roads, effecting electricity supplies for estate dwellers, upgrading schools in the estate sector and introducing housing facilities to replace the lime rooms in the sector. Prime Minister Rajapaksa also stated that the Thondaman generation has never put forward fake agendas, therefore there was no bloodshed in the estate sector. The Premier called to mind that late Minister Thondaman always referred to the estate sector community as our people and rendered an undisputable service to the sector. The Premier concluded stating that therefore late Minister Thondaman was a true people-centric leader. Subsequently, the Prime Minister and the attendees paid their last respects. Thereafter, representatives of political parties also made condolence speeches.
Mr. Arugam Thondaman was a great leader for the estate community and also for the Nureli district and also a national leader in this country. I believe Honorable Arugam Thondaman was maturing as a very level-headed leader who could give yeoman and ample service to the estate community of this country. So my dear friend, goodbye. I wish I was able to work with you in the future, but unfortunately I cannot do so because God has taken you away from us. I wish you all the best and may your soul rest in peace.
Shivan Thondaman, the son of the late Minister Arumugan Thondaman, said that his father had a dream for the development of the hill country and that they will bring to realization all those dreams. He regards materializing those dreams as his responsibility. He further stated that some had the impression that the Salon Workers Congress has come to an end. However, he pointed out that this is only a temporary grim situation. After Hindu religious rites were conducted, the funeral of the late minister took place amidst the bereaved hill country Tamil community.
And meanwhile, Batticalo's Zion Church bomber Muhammad Nazar is revealed to have visited the church 2 days before the Easter Sunday attack on 21st of April last year. It was stated yesterday before the Presidential Commission inquiring into the Easter Sunday attacks that the bomber had visited the location on Good Friday last year. Meanwhile, the cleric in charge of the church testifying before the commission states that no compensation has been granted for the reconstruction of the church since the day of the attack. Reverend Father Ganeshamurthy Thirukumar of the Sion Church testified before the Presidential Commission yesterday. The Commission queried from the witness as to whether he noticed any stranger on the day of the attacks in the premises of the church. In response, Father Ganeshamurthy Thirukumar said a particular individual had arrived at the premises, and when inquiry was made, the individual had given his name as Umar. Father Thirukumar further stated when the reason for the individual to arrive at the church was queried, the individual has responded, stated that his mother is unwell and therefore he arrived at the church for special prayers to be offered. Subsequently, the Commission questioned the witness on the language medium used during the conversation. The witness responded, stating that since the majority of the Muslims speaking in Tamil, the conversations also took place in Tamil. The witness further stated that since the unknown individual gave his name as Umar, he assumed that individual was a Muslim. The witness thereafter stated that since he had to head for the Karavati Church, which is a branch of Zion Church, he instructed for details about the individual Umar to be provided to Reverend Father Stanley, who was at the church. The Commission produced a photograph and asked the witness whether he can identify the individual therein. The witness identified the individual to be Umar. The Commission queried from the witness as to whether he received a telephone call after leaving the premises of the church. Responding to the question, the witness stated that a person injured in the attack, who was a relative of one of the Reverend sisters, contacted him, and the telephone conversation, it was stated that a tense situation prevailed at the church. Thereafter, the witness stated that then he returned to the church premises, at which the fire brigade had arrived, as a fire seemed to have erupted in the church, spreading a cloud of smoke. The witness further stated that people were running all over, whilst he also saw people had been killed. Upon entering the church, he encountered Father Stanley, who is in weeping, said that it was Umar who caused it all. The Commission questioned the witness as to whether he had seen Umar before the 21st of April. The witness responded, stating that he has never seen this individual. However, it is suspected that the cleric at the church had seen an individual with similar features who had visited the church on a previous day. The Commission queried from the witness as to whether compensation was received from the government to reconstruct the damaged church. The witness responded, stating that so far no compensation has been received at all. At this point, the Presidential Council representing the Cardinal questioned as to whether a sum of 10 million rupees was received from the Cardinal and the Catholic Church. The witness responded, stating that he is not aware of this, and further stated that the Cardinal did visit his church. However, he is unaware of any granting of monies. Meanwhile, the Commission also heard evidence from Father Nagaya Stanley, who was at the location at the time of the attack. The Commission questioned as to what type of conversation took place with Umar. Father Stanley responded, stating that he requested the individual to go into the church. However, the individual has not heeded to the instructions, stating that he is expecting a telephone call. The witness further stated that since a suspicion arose regarding the individual, he confined the suspicion with an individual by the name of Yoganathan, who works for the church. It was then the church work stated that the individual had visited the church on a previous day. However, on that day he had not taken serious note of the individual and had informed a cleric at the church by the name of Ramesh, saying, "Doesn't his appearance look like those of the ISIS?" At this point, the Commission questioned as to what point Umar was where the conversation was taking place. The witness stated that Umar stood where he was, and in the discussions with fellow cleric Ramesh, it was revealed that since the healing service is conducted on Wednesdays, the relevant cleric had advised individuals to return on Wednesday. Thereafter, the day's service commenced at 9 a.m. The church witnessed made observations as to whether Umar was in the church during the service. The witness stated before the Commission that since Umar was not to be seen, he assumed that he may be the Father Ramesh has escorted him away. The witness further stated that thereafter he saw a fellow cleric by the name of Sashi, who is a friend of Father Ramesh, and Father Sashi's face was a troubled impression. That witness stated that he turned towards Father Sashi. The bomb exploded.
Minister Pavitra Vanyarachi says zero COVID-19 infected patients being reported within the past month is a reason to be glad as a nation. Meanwhile, the number of fully recovered COVID-19 patients has reached 801. The number of COVID-19 patients undergoing further treatment at hospitals currently stands at 819. 10 new confirmed cases were reported today, while 20 patients upon full recovery were discharged today as well. The number of fully recovered Navy personnel currently stands at 403, whilst 347 Navy personnel are undergoing treatment. The number of fully recovered patients exceed the number of patients undergoing treatment. The number of COVID-19 infected cases detected amongst Navy personnel currently stands at 797 and accounts for 48.89%. Among the total number of COVID-19 infected patients reported in the country, 524 are imported cases, which is a percentage of 32.14%. The rest of the infected patients, which is 309, have been identified locally and they account for 18.95%.
And now let's move on to the world corona update. India has said it would begin a major relaxation of the world's biggest coronavirus lockdown from early June, but extended the lockdown until June 30th in high-risk zones. The government will allow the hospitality and retail sectors and places of worship to open from June 8th and expected authorities to ensure physical distancing rules and strategies business hours after the country continued to report a high number of new infections. The Home Ministry ordered state governments and local authorities to identify contaminated zones or areas that should remain under lockdown. Schools and universities will resume classes after discussions with Indian state authorities, with a decision due in July. The ministry said that international air travel, mass transit, cinemas, swimming pools and bars will remain closed for the time being. Sport is still on hold, with the lucrative Indian Premier League IPL cricket tournament yet to resume after it was postponed last month, along with political and religious events with large congregations. Restrictions on international air travel and city train services have not been revoked, but permission for inter-state travel was granted. India recorded a daily jump of 7,964 new COVID-19 infections on Saturday and has so far recorded 174,301 positive cases, 4,981 deaths, making the world's second most populous country with 9th of the list of more infections. The US say there have been 1,771,124 confirmed cases and 103,815 deaths, with 416,461 people recovering from the virus. The number of coronavirus fatalities in Brazil have risen almost 1,000 in a day, making the country's overall death toll the world's fourth highest. Its figure of 28,834 has now surpassed France, and only the US and the UK and Italy have recorded more deaths. President Jair Bolsonaro has constantly played down the outbreak, although the country has the world's second highest number of cases. He has criticized the state lockdowns for harming Brazil's economy and jobs. The mayor of Colombia's capital is planning to shut down one of the city's largest neighborhoods as cases there continue to rise. Mayor Claudia Lopez said starting from June 1st, the class-working Kennedy area, home in nearly 1.5 billion people, will be unrestricted quarantine. Police and military will enforce the lockdown, and no one will be allowed to except to seek food or medical care in case of an emergency. According to the latest figures published by Johns Hopkins University, 6,095,260 cases have been detected worldwide, with 369,789 deaths and 2,587,791 people recovered.
England risks losing control of the coronavirus pandemic again because it is starting to lift its lockdown without a fully operational track and trace program in place, senior scientific advisors warned yesterday.
Sun seekers in Britain headed to parks and beaches on Saturday, just days before lockdown measures are set to be eased. While people enjoyed the sunshine and warm temperatures, senior scientific advisors warned that England risks losing control of the pandemic again. The reason, they say, it's starting to lift its lockdown without a fully operational track and trace program in place. One of the slowest countries to lock down, Britain is now one of the worst hit. To allow some parts of the economy to reopen while curbing the virus spread, a test and trace system was introduced on Thursday. It will ask the contacts of people who've been infected to isolate for 14 days. The government says they're taking cautious steps to ease the burden on lockdown and keep the virus reproduction rate down. They allow for up to 6 people to meet outside their homes in England from Monday, and the resumption of some school classes. But some scientific advisors say the system is untested and risks being overwhelmed by the infection rates, currently around 8,000 new cases a day.
And meanwhile, The update from UK to USA. Curfews have been ordered in cities across the US to try to stem unrest sparked about the death of a black man in police custody. But they have been denied in many areas, with shops looted, cars burned and buildings attacked. Riot police have used tear gas and rubber bullets. President Donald Trump urged healing over the death of George Floyd, but said he could not allow mobs to dominate. A white ex-policeman is charged with murdering Mr. Floyd, 46, in Minneapolis. Derek Chauvin, 44, is due to appear in court on Monday.
Chants of Black Lives Matter and I Can't Breathe echoed across the United States again on Saturday night as several major cities imposed curfews amid intensifying unrest over the death of George Floyd. From Los Angeles to Miami to Chicago, protesters echoed the black man's dying words as he gasped for breath, while a white Minneapolis policeman knelt on his neck. Civil rights activists say a video of the incident triggered an outpouring of rage that has long simmered over persistent racial bias in the US criminal justice system. The spreading protests coincide with an apparent deep-seated national discontent over the social and economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic. In the nation's capital, protesters faced off against military police outside the White House, shouting and setting off fireworks. President Donald Trump said on Saturday that if protesters who'd gathered the night before had breached the White House fence, they would have been greeted with the most vicious dogs and most ominous weapons. The anger on the streets has been widespread.
He's got a bow and arrow, man!
Footage caught by onlookers showed a man pointing a bow and arrow at protesters in Salt Lake City, a police car driving into a crowd in New York City, and a woman run down by a Jeep in California. 4 nights of arson, looting and vandalism in parts of Minneapolis and St. Paul prompted the activation of the full Minnesota National Guard for the first time since the Second World War. The streets there were largely quiet earlier on Saturday, but as the curfew came into effect, police clashed with protesters, firing tear gas and rubber bullets. Among those hit were 2 members of a Reuters TV crew. Cameraman Julio Cesar Chavez and security consultant Rodney Seward were both clearly identified as members of the media when they were struck by rubber bullets while taking cover at a gas station. Minneapolis police made no immediate comment and requested a copy of the video. It's the latest incident involving journalists covering the protests.
Somebody watching for cops.
A black CNN journalist was arrested on camera on Friday, and a Louisville reporter was seen being hit by what appeared to be a pepper ball.
And a species of locust is being reported in the Francisca area at Mamatagama in Kurunegala. Our correspondent states the locust species is currently spreading rapidly in an area of 4.5 acres. The type of locust damaged all types of crops. Northwestern Province Agro Director W. S. Hilaratna says this is the first occasion that the locust species have been identified in the country. He further stated the species have invasive breeds in swarms and spreads rapidly. Residents in the area informed the Northwestern Agriculture Department, and thereafter steps were taken to spray pesticides. Meanwhile, Agriculture Director at the Peradeniya Agricultural Department, Dr. W. A. Veerakon, states that this species is not the species of locust reported in India recently.
The suspect arrested in connection with the incident in which an unidentified gang had opened fire at a hotel in Ratmalana area and fled the scene was produced before the Moratuwa acting magistrate today. The court ordered that the suspect be placed under detention until the 5th of July for questioning. The suspect was arrested at around 8 p.m. in the Eluvilla area in Panadura yesterday by the intelligence officers of the Police Special Task Force. The arrestees was produced at the Mount Lavinia police station, where a mobile phone and a SIM that was in possession of the suspect was seized by the police. The 34-year-old suspect is a resident of Angulana, Moratuwa. The arrestee is also one of the chief suspects in connection with the shooting and killing of a councillor of the Mount Lavinia Municipal Council on the 24th of May 2018 and had been released on bail after being remanded. On the 19th of this month, when curfew was in force, a group that arrived in a car brandishing swords and sharp weapons had caused damages to the hotel and fled after injuring one of the employees as well.
More on your local stories. The government states that the Itukama Healthcare and Social Security Fund is prepared to control not only COVID-19 but all the epidemics that should spread in the future. This was emphasized in the Itukama program telecast over several television channels by the Sri Lanka Broadcasters Guilds today. Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne stated that COVID-19 will not be the last epidemic to enter Sri Lanka. Therefore, as there is a possibility for other epidemics to emerge, the necessity arises for a short-term mechanism to be put in place. The Defence Secretary states that the finances cannot only be deployed for the purpose, as due to the pandemic all government revenue has been exhausted. Therefore, the Defence Secretary pointed out that if the public is also able to contribute financially as a juncture, it will be extremely valuable.
මෙවැනි තත්ත්වයක් ඇති වෙන්න ආවොත් අපි කොහොමද ඒකට බය නැතුව මුණ දෙන්නේ කියලා හිතන්. ඒ කියන්නේ යටිතල පහසුකම් ඇතුළුව ඒ හැම දෙයක්ම ලෑස්ති කරන්න මම හිතන්නේ මේ අරමුදලෙන් ප්‍රයෝජනවත් වෙයි. මේ කොවිඩ් කියන්නේ
Director General of Health Services Consultant Dr. Anil Jasingh has said in the wake of the COVID-19 outbreak it is necessary to analyze behavioral patterns and make positive changes, as it is important to understand the means by which the well-being of the entire society can be maintained.
කල්පනා කළා කටයුතු කිරීමේ අවශ්‍යතාවය තියෙනවා. මොකද අපි මේ සමස්ත ජනතාවගේ චර්යාව වෙනස් කිරීමකටයි යන්නේ. මේ සමාජ ආරක්ෂණ අරමුදල විශාල වශයෙන්.
NASA SpaceX. Stay tuned for international news after this break.
US astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken have docked with the International Space Station. Their Dragon capsules, supplied and operated by the private SpaceX company, edged them into port on the high-flying lab's bow section. The men will have to wait for leak and pressure checks to be completed before they can disembark and join the Russian and American crew already on the ISS.
Clear on Dragon to ground.
Hurley and Behnken launched from Florida yesterday. It was the first time since the retirement of the shuttle 9 years ago that the U.S. Space Agency has sent up astronauts from home soil. The mission marks the beginnings of a new era in which NASA will be purchasing transport services from the commercial sector. No more will it own and operate the vehicles that run to and from the station.
Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
America has launched. And so rises a new era of American spaceflight, and with it the ambitions of a new generation continuing the dream.
Falcon power telemetry nominal.
This will be done, as in this case, by firms like California's SpaceX outfit, which is led by tech billionaire Elon Musk. Confirmation of the Dragon's attachment at the ISS came at 14:16 GMT, slightly ahead of schedule, 262 miles above the border between northern China and Mongolia. It was a fully automated process. Hurley and Behnken had no need to get involved, although they had practiced some manual flying on approach. SpaceX flew a first demonstration of its new crew vehicle last year, but that had only a dummy aboard. This sortie is the first to carry humans. Hurley's and Behnken's job on the mission is to test all onboard systems and to give their feedback to engineers. SpaceX and NASA want to move swiftly to the next phase of the $2.6 billion contract, which will see 6 crew taxi flights, with the first to occur at the end of August.
By humans since 1972.
It's cricket in your sports update this evening. The Sri Lanka Cricket Institute says that 13 players of the national team will recommence training from tomorrow. They are due to join a 12-day domestic cricket training camp. Training will be underway at the CCC grounds. They are required to remain at their hotel until the training camp is complete. 4 members of the training staff will also join the camp. Tomorrow, the cricketers will undergo physical fitness training. Their training at the grounds will begin from Tuesday. And with that, we conclude tonight news. Do it just tomorrow at the very same time. Stay safe. Good night.
Good night.